Hey everyone, imagine a world on the brink, a global conflict tearing nations apart, a silent, unseen enemy lurking beneath the waves, threatening to cut off the very lifelines of freedom. Picture cities dimmed by blackout curtains, rationing cards clutched in anxious hands, and the desperate cries for supplies echoing across the vast, unforgiving ocean. Now, in this crucible of crisis, imagine facing an impossible problem. How do you build enough ships quickly enough to save a civilization? For centuries, shipbuilding was an art, a craft passed down through generations of master artisans. It was slow, meticulous, almost sacred work. Building a single cargo vessel of significant size? That was a multi-year endeavor, easily 6 to 8 months, sometimes more, a testament to skill and patience. Yet, in the darkest hours of World War II, America achieved something truly mind-boggling. They built a complete cargo ship, a behemoth 441 feet long, weighing over 28 million pounds, in just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes. Not months, not weeks, but days. This wasn't some isolated miracle. It was the culmination of a systematic, almost defiant revolution in industrial production. It reshaped manufacturing, challenged deeply entrenched traditions, and proved that what experts deemed impossible was simply a lack of imagination. It's a story of desperation, innovation, sheer audacity, and the incredible, often untapped potential of ordinary people. Today, we're diving deep into the electrifying true story of Henry J. Kaiser and the Liberty ships, a tale that doesn't just chronicle a wartime victory, but offers profound lessons about leadership, disruption, and the art of turning perceived limitations into pathways for unprecedented success. This isn't just history, it's a blueprint for anyone looking to innovate, overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, or simply understand how radical thinking can reshape reality. So buckle up, because this journey into the past might just change how you look at the future. The year is 1940. Europe is aflame, and Britain stands alone, its vital supply lines across the Atlantic becoming graveyards for merchant vessels. German U-boats, sleek and deadly, were sinking Allied shipping at a terrifying rate. In 1941 alone, a staggering 3.6 million tons of Allied shipping vanished beneath the waves. Britain was literally starving, its lifeline severed. Winston Churchill himself famously declared, "The only thing that really frightens me during the war is the U-boat peril." Across the ocean, America, though not yet officially in the war, was preparing. The U.S. Maritime Commission, tasked with bolstering the nation's merchant fleet, knew they had a monumental challenge on their hands. Traditional American shipyards, using conventional methods, needed an average of 230 days to build a single cargo ship. At that pace, the Battle of the Atlantic would be lost before American industry could even begin to respond effectively. It was a mathematical certainty of defeat. Enter Henry J. Kaiser. He was a 58-year-old construction magnate, a force of nature whose career was built on moving earth and pouring concrete for massive projects across the American West. Think Boulder Dam, Grand Coulee Dam, the Hoover Dam. He had built highways, bridges, and tunnels, all on an epic scale. But one thing he had never done was build a ship. He had never managed a shipyard, nor did he possess a single iota of traditional maritime experience. Yet, on December 27, 1940, Kaiser signed his first shipbuilding contract, promising the U.S. Maritime Commission he would build 30 cargo vessels for the British government within 2 years. The maritime establishment scoffed. Imagine the whispers, the outright ridicule. This concrete guy, this dirt mover, he thinks he can build ships faster than we, the masters of the craft, who have centuries of tradition behind us. The Todd Bath Iron Works, one of America's oldest and most prestigious shipyards, reluctantly agreed to partner with Kaiser, their executives privately convinced that their expertise would compensate for Kaiser's perceived ignorance. They saw him as a naive opportunist, a blusterer who would quickly learn the cold, hard realities of shipbuilding. But here's the crucial twist, the pivotal moment that often separates revolutionaries from traditionalists. What everyone else saw as Kaiser's fatal flaw, his complete lack of shipbuilding experience, would become his greatest asset. He wasn't constrained by the "we've always done it this way" mentality. He didn't carry the baggage of generations of accumulated wisdom that, while valuable in its time, had become a mental cage. He saw shipbuilding not as an artisanal craft, but as a large-scale manufacturing problem, much like the dams he had constructed. This fresh perspective, unburdened by dogma, allowed Kaiser and his team to ask fundamental questions that traditional shipbuilders simply couldn't conceive. Why does it take so long? Why are these steps done in this specific order? What if we threw out the rulebook entirely? The initial tremors of Kaiser's revolution began in early 1941. His chief engineer, Clay Bedford, had recently visited a Ford Motor Company assembly line in Detroit. He watched, captivated, as automobile chassis moved methodically down the line, with workers at each station installing prefabricated components. A light bulb went off. If cars, complex machines themselves, could be built this way, why not ships? The idea seemed ludicrous to traditional shipbuilders. Ships were massive, unique structures, not interchangeable parts on a conveyor belt. They simply couldn't wrap their minds around the comparison. The sheer scale, the intricate details, the unforgiving nature of the sea, it all screamed craft, not assembly line. But Kaiser's team wasn't swayed by traditional objections. Their first truly revolutionary proposal sent shockwaves through the industry: eliminate riveting entirely. For centuries, ship construction relied on rivets, heated metal pins painstakingly hammered through overlapping steel plates to join them. A skilled riveting crew, working in perfect, synchronized rhythm, might install 100 rivets a day. Each Liberty ship, if built conventionally, required approximately 1 million rivets. 1 million. Imagine the time, the labor, the inherent bottlenecks. Kaiser, drawing from his experience building pipelines across the American West, proposed electric arc welding instead. This was a technique he knew well, a method faster, quieter, and potentially stronger. Vice Admiral Emory Land, chairman of the United States Maritime Commission, was deeply skeptical. His private correspondence, now preserved in the National Archives, lays bare the maritime establishment's alarm. "Welding has never been proven reliable for hull construction at this scale," he wrote. "The British Navy forbids welding on warship hulls. Kaiser is proposing we bet America's supply lines on an unproven technology." This highlights a critical lesson for innovation: the inherent resistance to new technologies, especially when they challenge deeply ingrained practices. Think about today's debates around AI, blockchain, or even renewable energy sources. Initially, these are often dismissed as unproven, risky, or not ready for prime time. The fear of failure, the comfort of the familiar, and the perceived sunk cost in old methods often outweigh the potential benefits of radical change. But Admiral Land, despite his reservations, also recognized desperation. The U-boats weren't waiting. The decision to approve Kaiser's contract was born not of confidence in the unknown, but of sheer, unadulterated necessity. Sometimes, it's the back-against-the-wall moments that force us to embrace the unthinkable. With the contract in hand, Kaiser's crews, skilled in erecting dams and highways, transformed empty mudflats in Richmond, California, into a shipyard between January and December 1941. And this wasn't just any shipyard. It was a facility designed in a way that horrified traditional maritime engineers. Instead of the massive gantry cranes and longitudinal building ways characteristic of established yards, Richmond was laid out like an automobile assembly plant. Open areas for prefabrication surrounded 7 parallel building ways. Railroad tracks crisscrossed the facility, designed to move massive steel sections weighing up to 150 tons. Overhead cranes capable of lifting entire ship sections stood every 100 feet. When John Riley, chief naval architect for Bethlehem Steel Corporation and a 30-year veteran of shipbuilding, visited Richmond in May 1941, his confidential inspection report was a mix of technical criticism and grudging admiration. "Kaiser has violated every principle of efficient shipyard layout I learned in 3 decades of experience," he fumed. "His prefabrication areas are too large. His crane capacity is absurdly excessive. His building ways are too short. Yet," he concluded, "I must admit the facility is designed for exactly what he claims: rapid assembly of prefabricated sections." Riley, like many traditionalists, was trapped by his own experience. He saw violations, while Kaiser saw optimizations. He saw excessive, where Kaiser saw necessary scale for speed. The next phase of revolutionary change came with the workforce. Traditional shipyards recruited from established maritime communities, where skills were passed from father to son across generations, creating a highly specialized, exclusive guild system. Kaiser, facing an unprecedented demand for labor, did something unheard of. He advertised in newspapers across America, offering wages 20% above standard industrial rates and promising to train anyone willing to work. Farmers, former secretaries, housewives, laborers with no maritime experience whatsoever, they flocked to Richmond in August 1941. The simplification of complex tasks, breaking them down into repeated, simple operations, borrowed directly from assembly line manufacturing, proved devastatingly effective. By October 1941, Kaiser employed over 10,000 workers in Richmond, yet fewer than 200 had any previous maritime experience. Think about that for a moment. 10,000 workers, 98% of whom were brand new to the industry. Traditional welders spent 4 years as apprentices, learning a comprehensive, all-encompassing skill set. Kaiser's instructors taught specific techniques for specific tasks in approximately 2 weeks. Workers didn't need to know how to weld everything. They only needed to master welding the vertical seams on bulkheads, or horizontal deck plates, or curved hull sections. Tasks they would then perform hundreds, even thousands of times a day. This specialization dramatically reduced training time and accelerated proficiency. It's a powerful example of how focusing on narrow, repeatable skills can unlock immense productivity from a general workforce. As these untrained workers gained experience through late 1941 and early 1942, something utterly unexpected occurred. The construction time for Liberty ships began falling dramatically. Kaiser's first Liberty ship took 197 days to build and deliver. Ship number 2 required 169 days. Ship number 5 required 128 days. Ship number 10, just 97 days. By spring 1942, Richmond was completing Liberty ships in an average of 70 days. Traditional shipyards watched with growing alarm as this novice workforce achieved production speeds that matched and soon surpassed their own highly skilled generational crews. The secret? Parallel production. The true genius of the prefabrication approach. Instead of building ships sequentially from keel to deck, Kaiser's yards fabricated entire sections simultaneously across the facility. While one crew assembled a bow section in a prefabrication area, other crews built stern sections, deck houses, engine rooms, and bulkheads, all in parallel. When these massive sections were complete, colossal cranes lifted them onto the building ways where welding crews rapidly joined them together. Albert Wooding, a production supervisor at Richmond Yard No. 2, explained this efficiency in a 1943 interview with Fortune magazine. In traditional shipbuilding, you cannot install the engine until the engine room is built. You cannot build the engine room until the hull is complete. Everything happens in sequence. He continued, Kaiser's approach allows parallel production. While one crew welds hull plates, another crew assembles the engine in a separate area. When both are ready, we drop the completed engine into the completed engine room and weld it in place. Tasks that previously required weeks now take hours. Consider the profound implications of this shift. A conventional shipyard might have 50 workers attempting to install an engine over 3 weeks, working in the cramped, often hazardous confines of a partially complete engine room. Kaiser's prefabrication approach, by contrast, assigned 200 workers to assemble the complete engine and its mounting structure in an open, well-lit workshop over 5 days. Then, giant cranes positioned the entire, fully assembled unit in a single, efficient 8-hour operation. This wasn't just faster, it was safer, more efficient, and dramatically improved quality control. More disturbing still to traditional maritime authorities was the casual elimination of centuries-old shipbuilding practices, particularly regarding design. Ships had always been built from meticulously drafted plans, specifying every detail down to the last bolt. Kaiser, in his quest for speed, used simplified drawings that provided basic dimensions and left many details to the worker's judgment and common sense. Traditional builders considered this recklessness. Kaiser called it flexibility. Vice Admiral Howard Vickery, vice chairman of the Maritime Commission and a career naval officer, initially fought fiercely against Kaiser's simplified specifications. His transformation from skeptic to supporter, documented in commission meeting minutes, illustrates the raw power of results over theory. In January 1942, he declared, I opposed Kaiser's request to reduce drawing specifications. Ships are not automobiles. Maritime construction requires precision. But by March, he noted, Kaiser's yards were outproducing our traditional contractors by 40%. By June, the gap had widened to an astonishing 70%. Vickery, a man of deep experience, admitted, I learned that perfection is the enemy of sufficient. This is a profound statement, applicable far beyond shipbuilding. Kaiser's ships were not beautiful. They were adequate. And adequate ships delivered more cargo than perfect ships still under construction. As construction speeds soared through spring and summer 1942, a surprising dynamic emerged. Competition among Kaiser's 7 shipyards spread across California, Oregon, and Washington. His son, Edgar, oversaw the Oregon Shipbuilding Corporation in Portland, while Clay Bedford managed the Richmond yards. These 2 ambitious men began an informal but intense contest to see whose facility could build ships faster. The race between Richmond and Portland became a public spectacle, with newspapers publishing updates like sports scores. Records fell repeatedly until, in September 1942, Oregon Shipbuilding built the SS Joseph N. Teal in an astonishing 10 days. Vice Admiral Vickery, concerned about stunt demonstrations distracting from actual production, eventually ordered the competition stopped. But the damage, or rather the benefit, was done. The competition had served Kaiser's purpose. Workers across all 7 yards now believed that extraordinary speed was not merely possible, but expected. It fostered a culture of continuous improvement and collective ambition. November 1942 brought the ultimate demonstration. Vice Admiral Land, during an inspection visit to Richmond, made an offhand comment to journalists. He remarked that Liberty ship construction had improved remarkably, but noted that even the recent speed records still paled compared to what mass production had achieved in other industries. Clay Bedford, overhearing this, took it as a direct challenge. He proposed to Land that Richmond Yard No. 2 would attempt to build a complete Liberty ship from keel laying to launch in under 10 days, cutting the Joseph N. Teal's record in half. Land, skeptical but intrigued, authorized the attempt, on the strict condition that it not disrupt regular production schedules. Bedford selected the 47th hull to be built at Yard No. 2 for this audacious record attempt. The ship would be named the SS Robert E. Peary, after the famous Arctic explorer. Starting Sunday, November 8th, at 1 minute past midnight, over 1,000 workers operating in carefully coordinated shifts embarked on something unprecedented in maritime history. The prefabrication strategy, honed over months, reached its ultimate expression. Every major component had been built, inspected, and staged. Before the keel even touched the building way, the bow section, comprising over 50 individual pieces, had been fully welded and equipped with anchor hardware, chain lockers, and forward crew quarters, all before assembly began. The stern section included the completed steering gear, propeller shaft, and aft crew spaces. 4 complete cargo holds, each a massive rectangular steel structure, were weighted and ready to be lifted into position. The engine itself, a 140-ton triple-expansion steam power plant, had been built, mounted on its foundation structure, and tested before it even left the factory. Where conventional shipyards built from keel to deck over months, Kaiser's yards assembled a nearly complete ship from these prefabricated sections in days. Just 4 days into construction, the hull was complete. The engine was installed, deck houses positioned, cargo holds secured, steering gear mounted. Then, on Thursday, November 12th, at 3:30 p.m., a mere 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes after the keel touched the building way, the SS Robert E. Peary slid down the launching rails into San Francisco Bay. The ship was delivered for service on November 15th, setting an additional record of 7 days, 14 hours, and 32 minutes from keel laying to full delivery. This wasn't just a ship. It was a physical manifestation of a paradigm shift. The crowd of observers, maritime officials, military officers, competing shipyard owners, journalists from across America, many arrived expecting to witness either failure or a compromised vessel, a shell that looked complete but lacked functionality. What they saw instead was a fully operational ship, requiring only minor fitting out before entering service. Vice Admiral Land, present for the launching, made brief remarks captured by newsreel cameras, his words revealing the maritime establishment's forced recognition that everything had changed. 6 months ago, I would have called this impossible, he stated. Traditional shipbuilding wisdom, accumulated over 3,000 years, said you cannot build a proper ship in 5 days. Henry Kaiser has made traditional wisdom obsolete, and he then dropped a bombshell. The United States Maritime Commission will now require all contracted shipyards to adopt these methods. The revolution was not just recognized, it was mandated. The psychological impact on traditional shipbuilders was profound and immediate. The same yards that had dismissed Kaiser as an ignorant outsider just 18 months earlier now sent engineers to study his approaches. The president of New York Shipbuilding Corporation, one of America's oldest and most prestigious yards, visited Richmond in December 1942. His confidential report to his board of directors revealed a complete ideological collapse regarding traditional approaches. Kaiser has achieved what our industry considered impossible by refusing to accept our limitations, he wrote. He treated shipbuilding as a manufacturing problem rather than a craft tradition. He simplified where we sought perfection. He standardized where we customized. He trained masses of unskilled workers where we cultivated generational expertise. The result is ships built in 1/10 the time at 2/3 the cost. We must either adopt his approaches or accept irrelevance. And this wasn't just an observation. It was a desperate plea for survival. By early 1943, Kaiser's influence had utterly transformed American maritime production. 18 shipyards across the country were building Liberty ships using prefabrication and welding. Average construction time had fallen from 230 days initially to just 42 days by mid-1943. The United States was launching 3 Liberty ships daily, more tonnage than German submarines could sink. The tide of the Battle of the Atlantic was turning, not just on the high seas, but in the sprawling, humming shipyards of America. But perhaps the most devastating challenge to traditional maritime authority came from the quality of Kaiser's workforce. The tens of thousands of women, minorities, and untrained workers who built these ships represented a direct refutation of the old guild system that had dominated shipbuilding for centuries. At peak production in 1944, Kaiser's 7 yards employed approximately 196,000 workers. Of these, over 40,000 were women, comprising an astonishing 27% of Richmond's production workforce by mid-1944. African American workers numbered in the tens of thousands, employed in skilled positions including welding, fitting, crane operation, and even supervisory roles, a level of workplace integration unusual for 1940s America. The democratization of skilled work that Kaiser enabled carried implications far beyond wartime production. By proving that complex manufacturing could be performed by trained workers rather than requiring generational craft expertise, Kaiser's shipyards challenged fundamental assumptions about labor, skill, and industrial organization. It demonstrated that skill wasn't solely inherited or acquired through arduous, multi-year apprenticeships. It could be taught efficiently and effectively, opening doors for anyone willing to learn and contribute. This paradigm shift was a precursor to countless movements for social and economic equality, proving that competence knows no gender, race, or prior professional boundaries. Christmas 1943 provided another powerful demonstration of Kaiser's transformed industrial culture. While traditional shipyards observed the holiday with 1 or 2 days off, Kaiser's facilities maintained production schedules. But rather than simply demanding work, Kaiser's organization provided Christmas celebrations that acknowledged workers' sacrifices. At the Richmond yards, management arranged for Christmas dinner to be served in the facility cafeterias, with turkey, ham, and all traditional accompaniments provided free to workers on shift. Local churches sent carolers. The Richmond Municipal Band performed. Kaiser himself visited the yards, shaking hands with workers and personally thanking them for their service. This wasn't just about efficiency. It was about building a community, fostering morale, and recognizing the human element in a relentless production machine. By mid-1944, Kaiser's 7 shipyards had produced over 800 Liberty ships. But the influence of his approaches extended far beyond his own facilities. The 18 American shipyards building Liberty ships had collectively produced 2,400 vessels by this point. Victory ships, a larger and faster design that supplemented Liberty production from 1944 onward, were built using the same prefabrication and welding techniques. The total American maritime production between 1941 and 1945 exceeded 5,500 vessels, representing approximately 53 million tons of shipping. The scale of production was staggering, almost unfathomable to contemporary observers, and remains impressive by modern standards. Commander Joseph Kenworthy of the Royal Navy, assigned to the British Admiralty delegation in Washington, watched American production with a mix of admiration and envy. His official reports to the Admiralty, declassified in the 1980s, captured the British perspective on American industrial dominance. The United States is building merchant shipping at a rate that exceeds the combined capacity of the rest of the world, he wrote. Kaiser alone produces more tonnage monthly than the entire British shipbuilding industry. The approaches are crude by Admiralty standards. The ships are inelegant, but they float. They carry cargo, and there are thousands of them. He concluded with a devastating insight. The Royal Navy built the finest warships in the world using traditional craftsmanship requiring years per vessel. The Americans build adequate ships in weeks. Adequate multiplied by thousands defeats perfection multiplied by dozens. This concise observation encapsulates the strategic shift. Quantity, delivered rapidly, can sometimes trump bespoke quality, especially in a war of attrition. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Kaiser's transformation was what happened after the war ended. Traditional analysts expected the wartime shipbuilding boom to collapse, leaving tens of thousands of workers unemployed and hundreds of costly facilities abandoned. The prediction proved partly true. Liberty ship production ended in September 1945. By December, Kaiser's workforce had plummeted from 200,000 to fewer than 20,000. The Richmond shipyards, that had employed 100,000 workers at their peak, stood largely empty by spring 1946. Yet, the knowledge developed during the emergency program did not disappear. It propagated, it evolved, it became foundational. The prefabrication techniques, welding procedures, and parallel assembly approaches that Kaiser pioneered became standard practice in global shipbuilding. When Japan and South Korea rebuilt their maritime industries in the 1950s and 1960s, they didn't just study Kaiser's Liberty ship program. They adopted his approaches as the foundation of their yards. The massive shipbuilding facilities in Ulsan, South Korea, and Nagasaki, Japan, that would dominate world shipping construction for decades, were direct descendants of Richmond Shipyard's revolutionary practices. The former traditionalists, those who scoffed, were eventually forced to acknowledge the genius by imitating it. John Bunker, professor of maritime history at the State University of New York Maritime College, summarized Kaiser's lasting influence in his definitive study published in 1972. Kaiser entered shipbuilding as an outsider, ignorant of maritime tradition, unconstrained by conventional wisdom, and willing to apply manufacturing principles that the established industry considered inappropriate for ship construction. In 36 months, he built more ships than had been constructed in America during the entire previous century. More importantly, he fundamentally altered how ships would be built worldwide for the remainder of the 20th century. The modular construction, prefabrication, and welded assembly that Kaiser pioneered are now universal standards. Every modern shipyard, whether building container vessels in Korea, oil tankers in Japan, or cruise ships in Europe, uses approaches derived from Kaiser's Liberty ship program. The magnitude of Kaiser's achievement can be measured in statistics that reveal both the scale of the program and its remarkable success. Production statistics show 2,710 Liberty ships built across 18 American yards between 1941 and 1945, an average of 1.8 ships per day at peak production. Kaiser's 7 yards alone produced 1,490 ships, comprising 27% of total American wartime merchant shipping built under maritime commission contracts. Construction time fell from an average of 230 days for the first Liberty ships in 1941 to 42 days by 1943, with the record holder, the SS Robert E. Peary, requiring just 4 days and 15 hours from keel laying to launch. Labor efficiency improved dramatically as workers gained experience. The first Liberty ships required approximately 1.1 million worker hours to complete. By 1943, average worker hours had fallen to approximately 486,000 per ship. Kaiser's most efficient yards, Richmond numbers 2 and 3, achieved construction in as few as 350,000 worker hours by utilizing 3-shift, 24-hour production schedules and maximizing prefabrication. Cost efficiency matched schedule improvements. The first Liberty ships cost approximately $1.75 to $2.0 million each. By 1943, costs had fallen to $1.8 million, despite rising wages and material prices, reflecting improved efficiency and learning curve effects. These weren't just fast ships, they were increasingly affordable ships, making their mass production even more viable. Each Liberty ship displaced 14,245 tons fully loaded and could carry 10,800 tons of cargo. These vessels could transport 2,000 pre-jeeps, 440 tanks, or 230 million rounds of ammunition in a single voyage. Powered by triple expansion steam engines that were deliberately old-fashioned but reliable and easy to manufacture, the ships achieved speeds of 11 knots, adequate for convoy operations. Training efficiency proved equally remarkable. Kaiser's schools trained workers in specific tasks in an average of 2 weeks. The fastest training produced productive spot welders in just 10 days. More complex positions like crane operators or ship fitters required 4 to 6 weeks of training. Compare this to traditional maritime apprenticeships lasting 4 years for basic competency and 10 years for master craftsman status. The key difference was specialization versus comprehensive training. Traditional apprentices learned all aspects of shipbuilding. Kaiser's workers mastered specific, repeatable tasks that they would perform. This targeted approach wasn't just faster. It was designed for rapid deployment of a skilled, if specialized, workforce. The battle casualty rates among Liberty ships demonstrated their effectiveness despite initial skepticism about rapid construction approaches. Of 2,610 Liberty ships built, approximately 200 were lost to enemy action, a loss rate of 7.4%. This compared favorably with pre-war merchant shipping loss rates and proved that welded construction, while initially suspect, produced seaworthy vessels. Some ships did experience structural failures due to welding defects. 3 Liberty ships broke completely in half due to brittle fracture problems, representing 0.11% of production. Nearly 1,500 instances of significant brittle fractures occurred across the Liberty fleet, but catastrophic complete breaks were rare. These failures, critically, led to improved welding procedures and steel specifications that virtually eliminated the problem by 1944. This highlights another vital aspect of rapid innovation: the willingness to learn from failures and iterate quickly. Kaiser didn't stop at good enough. He kept improving. Longevity statistics provided the ultimate vindication of Kaiser's construction approaches. Liberty ships, designed as emergency vessels with expected service lives of 5 years, proved remarkably durable. Many remained in service for decades after the war. The SS John W. Brown, built in 1942, remains operational as a museum ship in Baltimore as of 2024, 82 years after construction. The SS Jeremiah O'Brien, also built in 1942, is preserved in San Francisco and participated in the 50th anniversary commemoration of D-Day in 1994, actually sailing to Normandy under its own power after 50 years of existence. A third Liberty ship, SS Hellas Liberty, serves as a static museum ship in Greece. Post-war careers of Liberty ships extended far beyond their designed lifespan. Of the approximately 2,510 Liberty ships that survived the war, approximately 835 remained in commercial service through the 1960s. Many were sold to foreign shipping companies where they operated into the 1970s. The SS Albert M. Bow, the last Liberty ship built and delivered on October 30, 1945, was not scrapped but converted. Sold in 1964, it became the fish cannery ship Star of Kodiak in 1965 and remains today as the landlocked headquarters of Trident Seafoods in Kodiak, Alaska, still in existence 8 decades after construction. These ships were not mere temporary wartime expedients. They were workhorses that reshaped global commerce for decades. The economic impact of the Liberty Ship program extended across American industry. The massive steel requirements drove expansion of steel production capacity, particularly on the West Coast, where Kaiser built the Fontana Steel Mill specifically to supply his shipyards. This mill, completed in 1942, 5 months ahead of schedule, produced approximately 700,000 tons of steel annually and established California as a major steel-producing region for the first time. The magnesium required for incendiary bombs and aluminum for aircraft were produced in Kaiser plants built to support the integrated war production effort. This wasn't just about building ships. It was about building an entire industrial ecosystem. Employment effects rippled through communities across California, Oregon, and Washington. The city of Richmond, California, grew from a population of 23,000 in 1940 to over 100,000 by 1943, driven entirely by shipyard employment. Kaiser built Vanport City in Oregon, which briefly became the state's second-largest city with a population exceeding 40,000, all of whom worked in shipyards or supporting industries. These boomtowns, while temporary, demonstrated the transformative effect of concentrated industrial investment and the human migration that follows opportunity. Healthcare innovation emerged as an unexpected legacy of Kaiser's shipbuilding program. To provide medical care for his massive workforce, Kaiser partnered with physician Sidney Garfield to establish prepaid healthcare programs that eventually evolved into Kaiser Permanente, one of America's largest health maintenance organizations. The model of prepaid preventive healthcare, pioneered in the shipyards, influenced American medical practice for decades and served over 12 million members by the early 21st century. It's a testament to Kaiser's holistic approach. You can't have productive workers without taking care of their well-being. This vision of integrated, affordable healthcare, born from wartime necessity, became a cornerstone of modern American medicine. The workers themselves carried forward the lessons of the wartime experience into decades of peacetime achievement. The shipyards gave thousands of young people, especially women and minorities, opportunities to develop capabilities they would never have accessed through conventional career paths. Those opportunities opened doors that stayed open for the rest of their lives. A woman who proved she could expertly weld a ship hull wasn't going back to being just a housewife, without a renewed sense of confidence and capability. A minority worker who operated a massive crane wasn't going to accept lower expectations for their potential in peacetime. The skills, the work ethic, and the self-belief forged in the shipyards empowered a generation. The technological innovations developed during the Liberty Ship program influenced industries far beyond maritime construction. The welding techniques refined under wartime pressure became standard in structural steel construction, petroleum refining equipment fabrication, and pressure vessel manufacturing. The prefabrication approaches pioneered at Richmond influenced construction practices in housing, bridge building, and industrial facilities. Even today, if you look at modern modular construction, flat-pack furniture, or even how large-scale server racks are assembled, you're seeing echoes of Kaiser's parallel production and prefabrication principles. The organizational principles of parallel production, simplified specifications, and rapid worker training became foundational concepts in operations management and industrial engineering education. Professor Michael Porter at Harvard Business School, analyzing American industrial competitiveness in a 1985 study, identified the Liberty Ship program as a crucial case study in rapid capability development. Kaiser demonstrated that industrial capacity is not fixed, but can be created quickly when necessity demands it. The United States entered World War II with minimal merchant shipbuilding capability. Within 24 months, American yards were producing more tonnage than the rest of the world combined. This proved that industrial infrastructure, workforce skills, and production systems could all be developed at unprecedented speed when properly organized. That lesson has relevance far beyond wartime emergency. It suggests that perceived limitations on industrial capacity often reflect organizational and conceptual constraints rather than physical impossibilities. It's a powerful message for any nation, company, or individual facing a daunting challenge. Perhaps the limits aren't physical, but mental. The psychological transformation that the Liberty Ship program created among industrial managers and engineers proved as significant as the physical ships produced. Before Kaiser, manufacturing executives accepted conventional wisdom about production limits, skill requirements, and organizational structures. Kaiser demonstrated that conventional wisdom could be wrong, and that breakthrough performance required questioning fundamental assumptions. It showed them that they didn't have to be slaves to tradition. They could be masters of innovation. This shift in mindset, this belief in the power of radical thinking, permeated American industry. The Liberty Ship story ultimately stands as a testament to a profound truth about human capability and industrial possibility. The ships themselves, while crucial to Allied victory, mattered less than what their construction proved. Ordinary people, given training and opportunity, could achieve extraordinary results. Complex products previously requiring years of craft tradition could be manufactured in weeks using systematized processes. Industries resistant to change for centuries could be revolutionized in months when necessity and innovation combined. Admiral Chester Nimitz, commander of the Pacific Fleet, reflected on the strategic impact of American maritime production in his post-war memoir, published in 1960. We fought across 5,000 miles of Pacific Ocean, supplied by ships built faster than the enemy could sink them. Japan's military planners assumed American industrial capacity was impressive but finite. They believed that if they sank enough ships, eventually American logistics would collapse and we would be forced to negotiate. They failed to account for Henry Kaiser. By 1944, we were replacing shipping losses faster than they could inflict them. The mathematics of attrition favored the side that could build 3 ships daily over the side that could sink 2 ships daily. Industrial capacity, not martial valor, determined the outcome. His powerful words cut straight to the core. The Pacific War was won in the shipyards of Richmond, Portland, and Baltimore, as much as on the beaches of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. In the end, Kaiser's greatest achievement was not the 1,490 ships his yards produced, but the transformation of what industries believed possible. The SS Robert E. Peary, built in less than 5 days, stood as tangible proof that tradition did not equal truth, that conventional wisdom could be questioned, and that revolutionary improvement required revolutionary approaches. The maritime establishment that dismissed Kaiser as an ignorant outsider in 1940 spent decades after 1945 studying and implementing his techniques. The young workers who learned to weld and fit and fabricate carried those skills and that confidence into peacetime careers that rebuilt America's post-war economy. The approaches pioneered under wartime emergency became peacetime standards that influenced manufacturing across industries and around the world. The story of how one civilian's approach made Liberty ships appear in days instead of months is ultimately a story of transformation through demonstration. It proves that the greatest revolutions often come from those unconstrained by tradition, that progress requires questioning accepted limits, and that human potential exceeds conventional expectations when properly organized and challenged. Kaiser's workers were not superior humans. They were ordinary people achieving extraordinary results because someone believed they could and organized systems that allowed them to prove it. That lesson, demonstrated in the shipyards of Richmond and validated by 2,710 completed vessels, remains relevant wherever industries face challenges that conventional wisdom claims impossible. The Liberty ships are mostly gone now, scrapped decades ago or resting on ocean floors. But the revolution they represented endures in every modern shipyard, in every manufacturing facility that uses prefabrication, in every training program that teaches specific skills quickly rather than broad expertise slowly, and in every manager who questions whether impossible truly means impossible or simply means nobody has figured out how yet. That is Henry Kaiser's enduring legacy, carved not in steel, but in transformed understanding of what dedicated people can accomplish when freed from the constraints of tradition and challenged to attempt what experts claim cannot be done. From December 1940, when he signed his first contract knowing nothing about shipbuilding, to November 1942, when the Robert E. Peary launched after less than 5 days of construction, to September 1945, when the last Liberty ship was delivered, Kaiser proved that industrial revolutions happen not through incremental improvements, but through fundamental reimagining of what is possible. The 2,710 Liberty ships built between 1941 and 1945 carried more than cargo across oceans. They carried proof that human ingenuity, when unshackled from tradition and empowered by necessity, can accomplish the seemingly impossible. So, what's the ultimate lesson from the Liberty ship saga for us today? It's not just a historical anecdote. It's a timeless blueprint for breaking through perceived limitations. First, challenge conventional wisdom. Just because something has always been done a certain way doesn't mean it's the best or only way. Kaiser's lack of shipbuilding experience was his superpower, allowing him to see the industry with fresh eyes, unburdened by dogma. In your own life, in your business, in your projects, ask why relentlessly. Why this process? Why this technology? Why this assumption? The answers might reveal hidden inefficiencies or, more excitingly, entirely new possibilities. What impossible problem are you facing where the solution might lie in simply reframing the question? Second, embrace calculated risk and necessity as drivers of innovation. Vice Admiral Land approved welding not out of confidence, but out of desperation. Sometimes, being backed into a corner forces us to take leaps we otherwise wouldn't. Don't wait for a crisis to innovate. But when a crisis hits, view it as an opportunity to shed outdated practices and experiment with radical solutions. The courage to bet on an unproven technology or an unconventional approach can be the difference between stagnation and breakthrough. Third, simplify, standardize, and specialize. Kaiser didn't try to make everyone a master shipbuilder. He broke down complex tasks into simple, repeatable modules. This concept, known as modularity, is everywhere today, from software development to manufacturing. Identify the core components of your challenge, simplify them, create standardized processes, and train teams to specialize in specific areas. This dramatically increases speed, reduces error, and democratizes access to complex work. Perfection, as Vickery learned, can indeed be the enemy of good, or in Kaiser's case, the enemy of sufficient. Fourth, empower diverse and unconventional talent. Kaiser opened the gates to women, minorities, farmers, and secretaries, proving that capability isn't confined by traditional demographics or prior experience. By giving people opportunity and targeted training, he unleashed a wave of human potential that traditional industries had ignored. This isn't just a moral imperative today, it's a strategic one. Look beyond the usual suspects for talent. Invest in rapid, focused training. You might discover an untapped reservoir of innovation and drive. Finally, cultivate a culture of continuous improvement and healthy competition. The internal races between Kaiser's yards, though ultimately reined in, fostered a powerful belief in what was possible and pushed teams to constantly find better, faster ways. Build systems that encourage experimentation, celebrate efficiency gains, and allow for rapid feedback loops. Learn from failures quickly and iterate even faster. Henry Kaiser's Liberty ships are more than just a chapter in military history. They are a living testament to the power of human ingenuity, organizational brilliance, and the sheer audacity to redefine the limits of what's possible. They remind us that the biggest barriers are often in our minds, and that with the right mindset, the right system, and the right leadership, ordinary people can achieve truly extraordinary things. So the next time you hear someone say, "That's impossible," remember the SS Robert E. Peary. Remember the 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes, and ask yourself, what impossible challenge are you ready to tackle?